Hi everyone, I'm Shelly and you're watching There's No Place Like Home. Today I'm introducing a new series called Brave New World 2020, How Schools Shaped the World. I remember a few years ago when I read the book Brave New World by Aldous Huxley for the first time. I was thinking to myself, I could make a whole series of videos about this because the book in itself was completely disturbing in that I could see our society as of right now headed in the direction of this book. If you have never read this book, what it is about is it is a dystopian novel and it's set to take place in the future, and it's a future where children are bred in factories. There's no such thing as a family anymore. In fact, the word family is considered to be taboo and no one's supposed to use it. They are neurolinguistically programmed in their sleep to think certain things. And I just want to point out that this book was written in 1931 and published in 1932. And yet he was already cognizant of neurolinguistic programming, which is happening all around us all the time to program us into thinking certain things. But they are programmed to think certain things. They do not have any genuine thoughts on their own. Everyone in these books, they just think exactly the way that they were almost bred to think. They also are brought up in a caste system that is based on intelligence. There is the alphas, the betas, the deltas, and the gammas. I might have said that wrong. I know alphas and betas are the top two. But let me just read you the summary on the back, and then I'll get into why I'm going to be making this series. Aldous Huxley's tour de force Brave New World is a darkly satiric vision of a utopian future, where humans are genetically bred and pharmaceutically anesthetized to passively serve a ruling order. A powerful work of speculative fiction that has enthralled and terrified readers for generations. It remains remarkably relevant to this day as both a warning to be heeded as we head into tomorrow and as thought-provoking, satisfying entertainment. If you haven't read this book, I highly recommend that you do, because again, I will be referring back to it within the next few months worth of videos that I'm going to be providing for you here. So first of all, let's just get into the fact that this is a dystopian novel written as a satirical version of a utopian future. So at the time that this book was written, utopian thinkers were everywhere, and they were actually very prevalent in the school system. The education reformers of the time and those who were behind the way that schools were to be run, a lot of them were utopian thinkers, and I have actually talked about this in several of my videos. So Aldous Huxley, wrote this kind of as a conviction of them, almost, to just point out all of the flaws and all of the things that could happen if we actually would ever come up with a utopian society as these thinkers wanted. And a utopian society is basically a planned society where everything is exactly scientifically planned out, from breeding, so to speak, to thinking, to education. Everything is just scientific. Now, interestingly, Aldous Huxley has a few brothers, but two of them in particular I'm just going to bring up here. His brother Julian Huxley was a known eugenicist, and his brother Thomas Huxley was a biologist and was known as Darwin's bulldog because he was so forceful about pushing Darwinian evolution. So now, whether any of their views had anything to do with his writing of the book and the insights that he has, I don't know, but it's very scary in the way that he seems to have the future as of right now pegged in 1931 when he wrote this book. And what I'm seeing is that a lot of the main highlights of Brave New World in the way that they were programming these people in this book are being used in the school system today. And yeah, they're being used out in the greater society as well. But since I mainly focus on the education system, that's what I'm going to do with this book. But again, I encourage you to read it so that you know what I'm talking about. And I think that you will be shocked and a little bit saddened by it as well. Although I do have to say, it is a good book. But at this point in time, with everything that we're going through, it is indeed scary. So again, I just wonder, did he know something that we didn't know? I don't know, but here's just some of the highlights. So one of the highlights is, and I mentioned this before, that children are scientifically engineered. They are raised in wards, kind of like wards of the state or factories. They don't have parents. And then another highlight of this book, and by highlight, I don't mean good things. I just mean that it's a main part of the book, a major part of the plot. So the second one is that there is certain language that is unacceptable. There is taboo language, words that are not supposed to be used, such as mother, father, family, and other words that have things to do with the nuclear family. A third thing is that morality, such as monogamous relationships, are frowned upon in this society. And the fourth one has to do with the neurolinguistic programming. The indoctrination in these people runs so deep because they have little headphones put in their ears from the time that they are babies, repeating on loops hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times what the scientists in charge want them to believe, want them to think. So they are so indoctrinated that they have no genuine thought other than the one protagonist that the story is based upon. So that is actually what this series is going to be about. I'm going to be going over those 4 highlights that I just talked about and what exactly they have to do with the school system, because a lot of the things that we see in this book are almost being prepared for in the school system. So the first video in the series is going to be called Factory Raised Children, because we are at that point in time where you see that the state is trying to take on more and more of the responsibility when it comes to kids. Even as of right now, even with schools, most schools still being out or doing some form of hybrid learning. Even now, though, they are still trying to have control over these kids even while they're in their houses. You know, right now we have Tennessee making parents sign a form saying that they will not be watching their kids while they're doing school at home. We had another teacher that I did a video about where he said that he did not want parents watching the children while they were learning because he didn't want them getting into what he was teaching to the kids. Is the only thing that we can think of. We have other schools who are telling kids what they can wear while they're at home doing their schoolwork. Before this whole pandemic thing started, we had congressmen talking about making the school day longer. We already had in Pennsylvania, they lowered the compulsory school age from 8 to 6. I know that someone told me that in South America, the school age in some of the countries down there is 4 for compulsory schooling, and I fully anticipate that that is going to be happening here. And you do hear about that they want the school day to last until 5 or maybe even 6 o'clock. They're already serving free breakfasts at a lot of these schools and free lunches, which I will say a lot of these kids need. You know, there are a lot of kids whose parents don't have much money or who just don't have parents who are taking care of them. And so the school is gladly stepping in to take care of that, which sounds very altruistic, but I've gone over many times that the school is one of the problems. The whole school institution is one of the reasons that parents aren't being parents. But they want to start introducing free dinner meals for these kids at the school building. And I've even heard talk of public boarding schools. I know that there are some that already exist. So as you can see, we're really not that far from this whole factory raised children setting. And I remember when I was reading this book for the first time, I was thinking to myself, I was noticing the parallels that are happening now and that were happening in the book, but I just kept thinking to myself, but how would people let themselves get to this point? How would people allow something like this to happen? And the fact of the matter is that it's not like it's something that was a jumping off point, that they just went from nothing to bam, they're here in these factory raised schools. What I can see right now, and again, I'm just speculating, but I'm thinking of us as being in a prequel to Brave New World right now. And what they are doing is they are getting you used to things. They're working on things a little bit at a time until you do get up to that point where everything is taken over by the state, by the government, or as in this book, by scientists. So the second video in this series is going to be about that forbidden speech. And I talked about that, about how the words family and mother and father are not supposed to be spoken in this book. And we're headed down that path right now. There are some words that we are frowned upon using. And I won't get into it too much right now because, again, I'll be doing a whole video on this, but I'm thinking specifically right now of what is called gendered language. There are people who are telling you that you shouldn't be saying words like guys. Like a lot of times when I'm talking here or when I write a post on Instagram, I'll say something like, guys, you'll never believe what I just read. And there are people who are saying that you should not use that kind of language anymore. So yeah, we're heading down the path of forbidden language as well. The third video in this series, I'm calling Morality is for Dummies. And this goes back to this book and how in this book, promiscuity is the norm. Monogamous relationships, the people who want to pursue them are looked at almost as what we see as deviants nowadays. That's how they look at people who want monogamous relationships. They look at them as if there's something wrong with them. And so with the things that are being taught in school to kids nowadays from as young as pre-K, again, we can certainly see how we're heading down that path. And so the fourth and last video that I know of, again, this is tentative because this is going to be going over several months, but the fourth video that I'm planning on doing, and I'm thinking it's going to be the last, I'm going to be calling Thinking is Obsolete. And that is going to go over how I spoke of the neurolinguistic programming, how they were hearing these loops in their headphones over and over and over again until the point where everything that they said was programmed responses, no individual thought. And I'm going to compare that to the neurolinguistic programming that is going on now, and how if you look at a lot of these kids in school or a lot of the younger generation who have not been out of school very long, a lot of them don't seem to be capable of much individual thought. They all have the same programmed responses like the people in Brave New World. They have talking points that they stick to, and it just seems like there is no sense of critical thinking. In fact, you'd have to think, maybe sometimes it seems like there's no thinking at all. It's just memorization. So a lot of these things that are happening in this book, they're on a really not so good looking parallel. I can't even think of what word I wanted to use, but it's not a good parallel with what we are seeing in the world today. But it's something that it's easy to see. Especially if you have your eyes open to these things. I should say it's easy to see if you are one who already has your eyes open. If you are one of those people who kind of has shut everything down and who is, kind of just repeating everything that you're told, then you probably won't see the parallels. You will just see this as a book. But you know what? I'm willing to bet that if you're watching my channel, you're not one of those people. So anyway, I hope that you're going to enjoy this series. I think that I'm going to have a lot of fun making it, even though it might be troubling at times. But anyway, I hope that you like this and I hope that you enjoy the series. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed yet and would like to hear more of what I have to say, I would love if you would do that. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave one over on Instagram because YouTube disables my comments. Have a great day.